So the subtext of all this data sharing post Brexit that we're talking about and whether an adequacy decision will issue is of course government surveillance, whether by the Secret Intelligence Service or other intelligence services that process data, MI5 and government communications headquarters. Two countries in particular that I'm aware of that have already expressed concern over sharing criminal conviction information with the UK are the Netherlands and France. But again, government surveillance underlies that the larger issue. We see Schrems 1 and 2. And then you've seen in the press, whether it's just "it's my ball, I'm going home," or it has any kind of heft to it, is the whole notice of Facebook threatening to leave Europe. And then on the
And
flip side,
Australia.
yeah, and Australia. And on the flip side of surveillance, you have national security concerns. These have underlined a lot of the press around the former Trump administration's ban on social media platforms like TikTok, which has been subsequently blocked by federal judges in Pennsylvania and D.C., but challenges against WeChat and whatnot. And you've seen this dubbed in the press as the social media, kind of data wars. Now you're seeing real challenges to tech where they're having to localize, in effect, their operations, which we've never really seen before with regards to the internet and to the cloud. Do you expect the law to cave to technology as it often does, or are platform developers really going to have to build around these issues and consider how they function in a more localized manner to comply with these evolving pro-privacy frameworks?
I think you get real issues with the regulation of big tech, and of course some of GDPR's provisions. I think the underlying current behind them was an attempt to discipline big tech. If you look at the right to data portability in GDPR, for example, the right to move data from one place to another. If you look at the origins of that, I think it starts off as an antitrust measure. Big US tech corporations are so big, how can we make it easier to migrate to another platform? And so it fails as an antitrust measure, so it gets slotted into GDPR. And there's some sort of logic that says that somewhere in a back bedroom in Dusseldorf, there is a new founder of a new Sergey Brin, a brilliant person there waiting to set up a big tech company. And the only reason he can't get out of his apartment and do that is because of the dominance of Facebook and Google and Microsoft or whoever. And there's this frustration that the antitrust cases, whilst they've had high fines, haven't really punished those big tech operations. They've been pinpricks in the side of an elephant that's still charging. And I think that's going to be a perennial battle for the UK, for the EU, for whomsoever. And without name dropping, I interviewed a few years ago Max Schrems, and we had a really good discussion on this. And I think our view, I do agree with him on this, is that the only way that the European organization, for want of a better word, can discipline the big tech organizations is by looking at this sort of triangle of relationship of regulation. So looking at privacy, looking at fair trading laws, and looking at antitrust laws. And when regulators coordinate and look at the perceived issues around big tech, then they might make inroads. But until then, not. You look at the UK's enforcement action against Facebook, admittedly under the old law, not the new. They decide that Facebook has had this liaison with Cambridge Analytica that's unseemly and unlawful, and they decide to fine Facebook the statutory maximum, which at the time is £500,000. I mean, how I don't see Mark Zuckerberg going home and saying to his wife, no vacation this year, honey. We've just been fined £500,000.
Yeah,
I don't see that happening.
he's like
I don't.
go into the glove box and get me the payslip to there so I can pay this fine.
Yeah. So where I think regulators have got cuter against the likes of Facebook is, I don't know whether you're familiar with the Facebook dating case in Ireland. I think a really interesting use of a regulator's resource where they say, okay, Facebook say Valentine's Day 2020, we're going to launch Facebook dating. And they tell the regulator 10 days ahead or whatever. Regulator says, interesting, shows your data protection impact assessment. And Facebook say, and we don't know the full facts, I'm assuming what's happened, but I think Facebook say, yeah, data protection impact assessment. And the DPC knocks on the door and says, show us it. And whatever happens in that discussion, we don't yet know, but it leads to Facebook pulling the launch of Facebook dating across the EU. Now, why is that impactful? Because, of course, the biggest gold rush as we went into the pandemic was online dating. And Facebook were effectively removed from that market. And that hits them more than any fine can. They've lost opportunity. They're not in the big growth market for advertising. And all of those little dating operations that they were hoping to knock out of the water get stronger in that 6-month window that they've got or whatever during the pandemic. They're making cash and they're more robust and more able to defend the soldiers of Facebook when they're let out of the gate. So I think we're going to see regulators act much more in a much cleverer way, and that is relevant to e-discovery as well, because one of the biggest nightmares in e-discovery would be a public prohibition for a law firm, for example, saying that it cannot transfer data from the EU or from the UK to the US. That would be more impactful on their business than a likely fine in most jurisdictions.
I used your term before. I don't know if it applies here, but that micro challenge. It's almost like death by a thousand cuts. We often focus so much on the privacy issues. We don't even consider the fact that privacy could be an end around to these antitrust type issues. It's almost like with Al Capone in the States.
Yeah,
they couldn't get him on murder, so they got him on tax evasion.